Okay, and advise members your ongoing obligation to declare interests and switch off your mobile phone and turn your tablet to silent. Apologies, we have a number of apologies received. Patsy McGlone, Alban McGuinness, George Robinson and Barry McCuduff. Members, are you aware of any other apologies? No? Okay. Yeah. So,
No, he's not coming. His apologies.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Barry's, yeah, got that. Yeah. So we now then go on then to take evidence, members. Okay, and that's item 5. Page 5. Members, yep, if we can go on to then item 5, that's anaerobic policy and review of renewable energy policy, and we're getting a departmental briefing on this. You have the Clerk's memo on page 26, providing background information regarding the committee's request for a briefing on the policy for anaerobic digestion and the renewable energy guidance review. The following documents are also attached for your attention: an extract of the SPPS relating to renewable energy, that's on page 29, correspondence from the department on the policy for anaerobic digesters, and that's pages 34 to 39, a summary table provided at the meeting in July on the committee's recommendations of the wind energy inquiry, the department's response and stakeholders' views on page 41. Department's response to the committee's wind energy inquiry, which outlines its intention to review renewable energy guidance on pages 62 to 101, and correspondence from Windwatch NI on pages 63, and a further email in your tabled pack and at page 9. So, a paper from the department has been included in members' table packed at page 5. Members, have I got my table pack?
Morning.
Yep.
Morning.
Yep. Okay, thank you. And if I can welcome Angus Kerr, Director, Planning Policy Division, Mr. Philip McGowan and Miss Joy Hackey. You're very welcome. Haven't seen you for a while.
I know.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. How are you all? Keeping well? Okay.
Yes.
Grand. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, we're
Yeah.
Great.
getting used to the new two-tier planning system.
Yeah.
Now that we've passed planning to council.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
Very different.
Well, going well though, aren't they? They seem to be anyway.
Yeah, I think generally, yeah, that's the feedback. Early days.
Yes.
But-
Yeah. Well, they have a year in waiting.
Absolutely.
And a lot of training had been done, and from my colleagues, they seem to be enjoying it. Hearing from them.
Good. That's good. Yeah.
Good. Okay. Well, if you want to talk to us, maybe first of all about the anaerobic digesters, then. Please.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the opportunity to brief members today. The committee requested briefing on the Department's planning policy approach to anaerobic digestion, as you've said, as well as an update on progress in the review of strategic planning policy for renewable energy development, and also including issues about the ETSU methodology. So we'll try and cover that today in the briefing. It's worth noting at the outset that while the Department is responsible for regional planning policy in respect of renewable energy and waste, as I've said there, it's the councils who are now responsible for bringing forward local policy provisions in their local development plans, and also for determining the vast majority of planning applications for such developments as anaerobic digestion and so on. Under the new tier planning system, the Department will only be responsible for determining those proposals that are regionally significant. Most proposals for anaerobic digestion plant, commonly referred to as AD plant, are relatively small scale and do not breach the threshold to be considered as regionally significant. These proposals are therefore determined by local councils. I can confirm that the Department is not currently processing any applications at all for anaerobic digestion plant. Committee members will also appreciate that as departmental officials, it wouldn't be appropriate for us to comment on specific applications and proposals that are with the councils to make decisions on. Do, however, welcome the opportunity, as I've said, to speak in general terms about regional policy that applies to AD's plant. As members will be aware, there are two main types of AD plant, and you've given some detailed background briefing, I think, for today's meeting on those on-farm anaerobic digestion and centralised anaerobic digestion, so I'm not going to go into the detail of those right now. In relation to planning policy then relevant to anaerobic digestion, the Strategic Planning Policy Statement, the SPPS, was published, as we know, on the 28th of September 2015, and it really provides that regional planning policy context for all renewable energy development, including anaerobic digestion. In addition to being a material consideration in the assessment of development proposals for AD, the SPPS also provides flexibility for councils to bring forward local policies within their local development plans that support a diverse range of appropriate renewable energy development. Anaerobic digestion, in combination with combined heat and power plant, is a source of renewable heat and electricity. Therefore, proposals should be consistent with the policy on renewable energy development as set out in the SPPS. Depending on the circumstances of a particular case, other policy may also be relevant. The policy in the SPPS for renewable energy ensures that the environmental, landscape, visual and amenity impacts associated with or arising from renewable energy are adequately addressed, and that adequate protection is afforded to the region's built, natural and cultural heritage features. In addition, the SPPS requires that development that generates energy from renewable sources will only be permitted where it can be demonstrated that it will not result in an unacceptable adverse impact on public safety, human health, residential amenity, visual amenity and landscape character, biodiversity, nature conservation and built heritage, local nature resources such as air and water quality, and public access to the countryside as well. The wider environmental, economic and social benefits of all proposals for renewable energy projects are also material considerations that will be given appropriate weight in determining whether planning permission should be granted. Furthermore, the SPPS sets out a cautious approach to all renewable energy development proposals that are within designated landscapes of significant value, such as areas of outstanding natural beauty and so forth. The transitional arrangements of the SPPS provide for the existing suite of planning policy statements, including PPS 18, the one on renewable energy, to be retained for a transitional period. Therefore, these policies will continue to be material to planning decisions for AD proposals until the councils adopt their new plan strategies. As the committee will appreciate, every planning application will raise site-specific issues that need to be considered and assessed on a case-by-case basis. The weight afforded to each material consideration is a matter of planning judgment for the decision taker, taking account of the particular facts of the case. Material considerations will include the provisions of the local development plan, planning policy such as the SPPS, representations from the public, and the nature of the proposal itself and its location, among other issues. Members will be aware of the previous work that had been taken forward on the preparation of draft guidance on anaerobic digestion appropriate to on-farm development. This guidance will be further considered as part of the wider review of renewable energy planning policy. And that really takes me on to that review and to provide some briefing on that as well. As members are aware, the Minister committed to undertaking a full...
Maybe we stop there.
Yeah, that's okay.
So just see members if they have any questions on the anaerobic digester part. I have visited an AD plant in Nederland. I think it's wonderful. It's really a very good idea. But there are certainly oppositions, from local people on some of the AD farms. I don't mean the Nederland one I went to see. What are the main objections from people? The air quality, is it?
Well, I think it tends to be a range of objections. Sometimes I think people aren't, they sort of imagine an anaerobic digestion plant to be much more ready than it is. I've heard people saying it's like having almost like a mini power station, in the countryside and so on. So there's objections, there's almost a fear of something like that coming into an area of countryside or to, residential areas and so on, if it's near town or village. But it tends to be, noise and smell and
Does it give out a lot of smell?
no, it doesn't. No, my understanding is that the modern systems now, keep a lot of that smell in, if you like, and doesn't let it sort of get out into the wider environment.
I mean, I think part of it, there is usually odour modelling provided as part of an application.
Okay.
But it's how it's managed and stored prior to maybe going into the system, because
Okay.
in the system it's enclosed, so that's probably a reduced odour. And then the digest that normally comes out of that's to be spread over the fields. That actually will be again less odorous than the normal manure slurry that you would put on the fields. So there's a balance
Countryside smell.
there. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, there's a bit of a
But they are actually less,
it depends how it's managed
odour.
overall, I suppose,
Yeah.
over the process, but that's all part of the consideration of the application. But you can understand people's concerns in that regard if they don't know the detail and things.
How do you measure smell? Is there a mechanism to
We rely
measure
on,
it?
we rely on the expertise of environmental health
Joe, you hold your nose
consultees.
and then back out again, see.
Planners are not experts on smell,
Okay.
but
Okay.
we
Yeah.
get
So
consultation.
you get the environmental
Yeah.
assessment and the report?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. But any questions, Carl?
Is the aesthetics or how it looks, is that a big issue, or is that a complaint that you hear often?
It depends. Yeah, it depends on the size of it. I mean, quite often the plant and sort of development associated with it are actually quite sort of agricultural in appearance and so on, and can be quite sort of low down, not particularly sort of high buildings and so on. Like sort of storage areas and that sort of thing. So. Sometimes you would get concerns about that, but then whenever people actually see the detail of the drawings and so on, that will be often, offset. But those could be issues. But visual amenity is something that's taken into account.
But when it's a small one in a farm, it's no bigger than a big barn.
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Carl?
Thanks, Chair. You're very welcome back, Angus. So wildlife when we talk planning. But I suppose in answer to the Chair's question, you get up in the countryside and you just inhale and you'll be able to test out what smells there. It'll waken you up a bit. But I have to say, I certainly welcome this, but what I would want to put on record is that I know that recently there was one passed there, an on-farm one in Milford village. It's a lovely wee village, picturesque village outside Armagh, and there was a number of objections. And what I would like to say, whilst I'm certainly in favour of renewable energy, and it's not even about the individual or the application process. What it is about is striking the balance right between giving the applicant and also those residents who are going to be impacted on it, by it, the free opportunity to engage in the process. I know we passed that part down to council now, but I'm using this one in particular because there was some issues with it in terms of how they engaged, and I think that there was an opportunity for actually the entrance and exit into this site could have been more, and I agree it's just about out in the countryside. I wouldn't exactly say it's open countryside, it's just on the periphery of the village in terms of where it's at, and that's certainly, I've dealt with some of the residents, and there had certainly been some complaints about it, and we just need to tidy that up, because we sort of give more weight to the idea of renewable energy in terms of giving permission for it, as opposed to striking the balance, and I'd just like that recorded, because it's an issue for us. I can't understand why we're letting traffic light travel through a picturesque village, the home of the penalty kick, for those who don't know where it's at. But it's a lovely wee village, and what we're going to have, because that when this is established and it's going well and it's creating employment and it's doing its job it's designed to do, there could be an expansion in a couple of years' time. which increases traffic and all of that. So we need to just be careful in terms of, I think there was an option, but I think there was an option for the entrance and exit to be more countryside as opposed to through the village, you know. That's the only one I've experienced with, and I mean, that's what we're experiencing. I wouldn't like to see that happen or replicated right across, you know. Not taking away from the idea of anaerobic digestion or dealing with what we need to do, but there's a slight concern just, you know.
Yeah, no, I recognise that, and I think you're absolutely right about the balance. And that's the big challenge that, well, now the councils, but planners generally have when they're trying to make these sorts of decisions. How do you balance up the sort of all the pros of renewable energy and that type of development with the cons of the concerns amongst the community, public safety issues, traffic, and so on. And I mean, I don't know the details of that particular case, but when the planning system is working effectively and when planners are working well, then it's a process that can actually address some of the issues that you've raised. It's an opportunity to make sure that people feel they're being heard. It's an opportunity for planners to be able to take a look at the proposal and say, well, listen, there's a lot of concern about this aspect. Maybe if it's an access issue, why don't we look at changing that to here or moving that to there? And that's planning as it should be working, where you're trying to negotiate through a proposal so that it's actually what comes out at the end is actually better for everybody. I don't know what's happened in this case, but certainly
There's no doubt. I mean, some of my colleagues, my council colleagues, have argued the point. There definitely was. I mean, road service definitely come across in favour of the residents in terms of access and movement of traffic. But I wouldn't like it to be used as a precedent to move forward. It's a one-off individual case. I tend to think there was an opportunity for it to deal with differently, but it's on the record, but it's just something we can learn.
I suppose
from.
the other positive is from the legislative changes, the pre-application community consultation for major developments. So going forward, major proposals will require that, and that's the point where developers are a wee bit more flexible in changing it before their plans are totally concrete, and residents can maybe.
Well, the sooner that gets going, the better.
Well, that's already.
You know what I mean? The sooner that pre-application and involvement, the sooner communities and residents know what's coming down the tracks, as opposed to finding out a month later.
The pre-consultation.
You know what I mean? That's a problem, because that generates the problem for us at the start.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And sort of takes away from exactly what we're trying to do.
That's right.
So.
It's giving people right information as well. That's so important, really, and to be able to engage with people from very early on. Yeah. I know the ROCs is being stopped. Is it going to affect, people wanting to build any anaerobic digesters?
Yeah, it will. I mean, as you're aware, the wind proposals are being stopped even earlier, but all ROCs for renewable energy proposals are ceasing through legislation that DETI are bringing through, which is really derived from the UK government.
That's right.
And I think it's March 2017. So anaerobic digestion proposals will be affected by that. And actually, we've noticed just before we handed powers over to councils, we noticed a massive drop-off in the number of anaerobic digestive proposals anyway. For whatever reason, I mean, there was a lot of them came through about maybe 6-7 years ago, but then started to sort of tail off.
Yeah, which is really, in a way, not quite working with government policy of encouraging renewable energy.
Well, absolutely, and I think the Minister wrote, to DEC in England, and also has written to the DETI Minister here, raising those issues and those concerns.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I recall, I don't know whether you can talk about it, if you can just tell us.
No.
I think it was when Minister Atwood was still in place. It was a big application, an application for a large anaerobic digester near Loch Ney. That was turned down. So how has it progressed?
That's the Rose Energy proposal.
Yes.
I'm not sure where that's sitting. Whether it's, I think it's. I don't think it's completely gone away, but I can go back and check on that if you want, and come back.
Was it about
and
maybe 2 years ago?
Yeah, at least maybe even longer.
Yeah, yeah,
But I'll certainly we can update the
Yes.
committee on
Yeah.
where that sits at the moment.
okay, okay, thank you. So, oh, yeah?
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for your presentation. And as everyone's saying there, it's a long time since you've been before the committee, and you're very welcome. I just want to talk on about the anaerobic digestion again. And in terms of planning, if you were building a new site or whatever, the contractor there stipulated, to have grade roads to suit, and because of traffic and a higher level of traffic, maybe perhaps put on a roundabout and whatever. But you see, we need to be very careful that in the quest for renewable energies, that the people are not forgotten in all of this. I'm talking, about an application that's in the system, about someone that lives in the countryside, a small country road where 2 cars can't pass, and DOE may have come down on the side of the applicant, So the problem here is that road, should have been upgraded where, because there is going to be constant traffic on it with heavy tractors and whatnot. So, I'm saying, in the quest for renewable energies, then we have to be very mindful of the countryside and those that live in it. What's your views on what I've tried to describe?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I think, and that's one of the key considerations, not just for anaerobic digestion plants, but also all renewable energy plants. Yeah. Indeed, any application where planners need to take into account the impact it has on the road system around the development, and particularly what impact the new development itself will have. What additional vehicle movements there are associated with it, and we would consult Transport NI on that. The councils who now have the powers, they do that as well. And if there are issues, it may mean that you need to actually refuse a proposal as a result of that. If there are significant issues. Quite often what would happen is, in order to get something through, there would need to be conditions on it that would require, improvements to the road network, passing bays, junction improvements and so on. But you're absolutely right, I agree, it's a key issue and it needs to be carefully considered.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
I just follow
Yes,
on,
Cal,
Chair.
yeah.
I was saying we're stipulating that now, or is there an opportunity to do that? On condition. In terms of, Ian's mentioned a good point. Some of the roads, not that I want to spoil the countryside, all in an old house in the countryside would be very, very welcome for rural dwellers, and an old house would do well. But in terms of the road infrastructure, because there's a lot of established, especially HGV transport networks now out in the countryside, engineering as well has become a big thing, and in putting something on a condition. Now, obviously, I can turn around and say, well, I'm paying enough from the application and I'm going to do this, that, and that. But the roads are coming under severe pressure, because the increase of that then is lorries and more vehicles travelling back and forward. Is there an opportunity or with the plan or advice from planners to say, look, as part of the process, you need to seriously look now at widening this road, or see, because you have a problem then accessing land and everything else. It's a very difficult one, as you know.
Absolutely. And there absolutely is a possibility of doing that. And that's really always been the case, and continues to be so. Now that we've passed it over to councils, they need to look at the impact of the proposal on the wider road network. And if in order to make the development acceptable, then there needs to be improvements made to junctions, widening the road at some points, then that will need to happen before the development can progress, and conditions would be put on to ensure that would take place. And that's all decided with advice from experts in Transport NI, who can assess the impact of additional traffic movements and so on. And particularly with public safety in mind, if there are issues there, my certain experience is that they would, they're always addressed, but also congestion and so on, and just the additional pressure on the network.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
You want to move on then to the next item on the review? Yeah,
we just want to maybe just touch then on the forthcoming review of renewable energy policy, and also ETSU, which I think had been raised. And as members are aware, the Minister committed to undertaking a full and comprehensive review of renewable energy strategic planning policy once the SPPS was published. Following the publication of the SPPS, and as you would expect for such a new approach to policy, the Department focused on promoting and explaining the document and its policies in general, and in fact we're still doing that. And we've also been working very closely with councils who are critical really to the successful implementation and operation of the SPPS. A further issue has arisen that I want to bring to the committee's attention, and that is that since the publication of the SPPS on the 28th of September last year, it has become subject to a legal challenge. However, I can reassure everyone that the policy is presumed to be valid in law pending any decision of the court to the contrary, and it would not really be appropriate for me to comment further, but it's just to alert you to that. But despite all of this work and so on, preparation, work on the review of strategic planning policy for renewable energy is well underway. The Department is intending to begin a formal engagement process with stakeholders on the review later this month. And actually, I was going to say that was subject to legal advice around the implications for strategic environmental assessment, but in fact this morning we've got legal advice confirming that we can now, later this month, go ahead and issue a call for evidence on the review, which will cover a broad range of planning considerations for all renewable energy technologies, including wind, solar and anaerobic digestion. To seek evidence and views from the public and all interested stakeholders on the strategic policy approach, which will assist in setting the scope for the review and identifying where further research is required to inform policy development. It's the Department's intention to appoint consultants with particular expertise to undertake the research on the range of renewable energy technologies and on specific areas of concern such as noise, cumulative impact and separation distances. It will also be necessary to appoint strategic environmental assessment consultants, as we did for the SPPS, in relation to the review project. Works progressing on both procurement processes, and the outcome of the call for evidence will inform the finalisation of this work and if you like, the terms of reference and spec for the consultants. As previously stated, the review of the strategic renewable energy policy will also include further consideration of the recommendations of the Committee's wind energy inquiry, such as in relation to cumulative impact, saturation points, minimum separation distances for wind energy development and so on. One of the recommendations was that the Department would review the use of ETSU methodology, as you'll be aware, with particular reference to the guidelines from the World Health Organization, and the Minister did signal his intention to further investigate its use as part of the review, and that will take place. As the committee will know, ETSU methodology was originally published in 1996 as a result of a working group established by the time the UK Department of Trade and Industry to examine the difficulties experienced in applying various noise guidelines to wind farm noise assessments. It is currently established the established UK-wide methodology in relation to the assessment and rating of noise from wind energy development. As the committee noted in its inquiry report, the issue of wind turbine noise is one of the most contentious aspects of wind energy inquiry. The ETSU methodology is now the responsibility of the Department of Energy and Climate Change, and therefore it's not within the remit of DOE, however, to revise it unilaterally. However, as advised, the Department intends to appoint the consultants who will be tasked with forming recommendations regarding how ETSU is used in assessing potential noise implications for planning applications in Northern Ireland. The review will be progressed through the normal policy development process, and officials will of course engage with the committee at the appropriate stages, and any proposed new strategic planning policy will be subject to the normal assembly and public consultation processes. So thank the members for your time, and we're happy to take any questions on any of that.
Okay. So when do you think you will conclude the review?
Well, as I said, we're going to issue this call for evidence, later this month. That'll probably be a period of about 6 to 8 weeks, and then we'll inform appointing consultants sort of a little bit in the spring, leading on hopefully to getting draft proposals out for consultation towards the end of the year. I don't want to be too definitive about this because, it depends on what comes out of the calls for evidence, and it depends as well on what comes out of the work that the consultants do. And also, of course, I'm conscious that we'll be moving into a new mandate as well with a whole new we're moving into the new Department for Infrastructure, and there'll be those changes that are coming into play for planning and for policy and planning.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. That will be taken up then. by the Department for Communities.
Department for Infrastructure, actually, planning's
Or
moving
infrastructure, sorry, for
Yeah.
infrastructure, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And you're all going to move into Department for Infrastructure,
to, yes, really the sort of DOE planning group,
Yeah.
if you like, are all moving
the
in.
strategic division are going there.
Yeah, sort of the planning policy division for which I'm responsible, and then also the strategic planning division,
Okay.
which deals with all the regionally
okay.
significant planning applications.
You happy with that?
I am, yes. I think absolutely, because there's a lot of synergies in terms of
Yeah.
bringing us, closer with
Infrastructure.
regional
Yeah.
planning, also transportation policy and planning, and also water. There's a lot. It does make a lot of sense.
It makes sense, yeah.
We will be separating away from our environmental colleagues, which will be a new dynamic and an interesting aspect of the new system. They're moving to the new DERA.
Okay, but in a way then you may lose touch with them?
Well, I mean, we don't tend to do that, and in some ways it actually will be interesting because they're under a new department with a sort of a greater independence and separation from us, which was sometimes an issue in the past, through various different
You
challenges.
don't know how much independence they will get from the new department too?
Well, they'll be independent from us, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay, very good. Carl?
Thank you, Chair. I suppose they're crying freedom at the minute, these once they get out of the department. But see, in terms of, and that engagement still work anyway, no matter what parts they're going to. There are two things that I've said this in previous committees. I'm concerned about it's been swallowed up in this bigger department, not getting a fair crack of the whip, and it's down to yourselves to fight your own corner. You know what I mean? Obviously, the plans over the next period of time. The ATSU R97, as we call it, is still an issue. I'm certainly welcome any change. I mean, where are we now in terms of applications in the system? We're still going with whatever's there.
Yeah, until the outcome of the review is known, we're still carrying on as before.
And you find there may not be a problem, or possibly a problem arising from that in terms of a challenge in the future. Say you allow an application or approve an application now, and within, say, 12 months there's a change to whatever regulation it is, or there's a change in noise levels or whatever comes out of it. He's not concerned that there may be a challenge by an application either given approval or refused on those grounds. Have you considered that?
Well, I suppose in planning we're always concerned about the potential for challenge, and sadly there are too many challenges. But I mean, it's a common process for planning that over time policies change and legislation change, and new strategies are introduced and so on. So I mean, I think there's an understanding generally that you make the decision at the time in the best way that you can with whatever the prevailing policy framework is, and that's sort of generally accepted to be the right decision. As you move forward then, as new development comes forward, you have to assess it on the new framework, whatever that is. So,
Although Ange, to be fair, and I agree with you in that respect, but I have to say also, even in our time dealing with it, I mean, in the number of years I've been here, there's been a lot more robust challenges put forward right across the board. Down is one of them, of course. And I mean, there's a lot more legal challenges, a lot more knowledge and information coming across. People are studying the subject. And I mean, I know that we've received a letter this morning, an email from Mr. McMullen. I mean, is it the proposal to send that on to the department for a response?
Yeah, we'll do that. Yes, yeah.
Because you're familiar with some of the groups out there in relation to. Just a final point. I mean, there's no way then you're saying that you're not going to stop the process in terms of applications for either wind turbines or wind farms on the grounds of that. So you're going to use whatever guidelines is here now to test the application.
yes, it's
Opposed to say put on hold or.
no, there's no sense of putting anything on hold. Basically, we're undertaking a review, but until that's complete, it's as you are aware, if you like, with the current policy, which it does use ETSU.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the ETSU 97, as you say, is a UK-wide methodology. Do you get any sense that they feel that it should be updated? I know you said you're going to forward your recommendations or findings from your review.
The sense we get from DEC is that they are keeping it under review, tends to be what we're told, but that there's no immediate desire to change it. I mean, they did, I think, look at it some time ago, but our sense is at the moment it's under review.
Because it was meant to be reviewed within about 2 years, I think, and for how many years now, really, from 97. Yeah.
I think there was some work done, I think, wasn't
There
there?
was some work, but yeah, there was an assessment of some of the guidelines, but they didn't go into, as you're aware, Chair, they didn't go into that level of detail, and they haven't done, and as Angus says, there doesn't appear to be any desire at this point in time for them to do that.
Okay. And you are looking into it, is that right,
Well,
within this review?
Yes, we're looking. We can't change ETSU, but we're looking into how ETSU is used in Northern Ireland. So lots of the issues that you have raised through your report, particularly around separation distances and cumulative impact of wind turbines and so on, are all interlinked with how we use ETSU.
Okay.
So it's looking at it in that way rather than actually, because that's all we can do. We can't, I suppose ultimately, therefore, the conclusion of it could be that we don't use ETSU. I would find that surprising, but right through to changing how you use it, if you like, and changing how it's applied in Northern Ireland when you're making these difficult assessments of the noise impact of developments, cumulative impact, and all of that.
Okay, Ian?
Yeah, just on that point there, you say you can't change ETSU, right? But this, why review anything? Why do anything then if you can't actually do anything about it? Because we have had reports here, in the past, commissioned there by the committee, as far as I'm aware, that stated that ETSU, in their opinion, was the test was out of date, if you like, and unfit for purpose. So, if we can't change ETSU because it's a UK, as said, wide test, well then reviews and everything else comes to nothing, or what?
Yeah. Well, it's I suppose it's like a lot of things.
Consultations, we can consult all day, every day, and say, well, that's fair enough. We've got some great information here, but.
It's like a lot of things in planning. We cover a lot of sort of technical issues across the board, whether it's noise, air quality, transport issues, and that sort of thing. And to inform that, there are guidelines, if you like, detailed guidelines set out by other departments. Sometimes there are other UK departments, sometimes other Northern Ireland departments, and so on, that would inform. We would say in planning policy, you must take account of these guidelines or that guidelines. So, we're not responsible for those guidelines. ETSU or lots of those other types of guidelines. So we're trying to really just deal with it from the point of view of what we have control over. Now, I suppose I'm jumping ahead here. It is possible that the outcome, the expert consultants could say to us, look, we don't actually think ETSU is very helpful or very useful for Northern Ireland. And then we would have to feed that into our colleagues in DETI, also colleagues in the UK departments responsible for that. And they may make some other recommendations about how it's used and how it can be used better and so on, for which we actually would have a greater degree of responsibility for. So that's kind of the focus of it, because that's really all we can control and deal with at the moment.
Okay.
Cahill, briefly.
Well, just briefly, Chair, the solution lies in the condition on the plan application, where it be a distance issue to deal with the noise, or an engineering solution in terms of the type of machinery is put in or whatever. But now you get into this department, there's an opportunity to work together in relation to some elements of it. Correct. Yeah. That's how because Ian mentioned the point about the reuse of some of the wind turbines, and they may not be up to scratch. So it's a joint issue. Because you could send them away 2 miles away, and it's grand. Noise is not an issue. But in reality, you can condition to say we can accept a certain distance, and then look towards working with DETI in terms of what the noise issue is, the decibel issue, the physical sound. Yeah.
Absolutely. Like so many planning issues, it is joint like that.
Just very quickly, CGen is being decommissioned. What's going to happen?
Again, I'll have to come back on that, Chair. I'm not
Okay.
aware of the details of what's sort of coming next on that, but I can certainly come back to you on that and find
Right.
out.
Okay, because it does work. It's being shown as really a world exemplar. It would be a pity not to continue with it. Yeah. Okay, thank you. No more questions for you, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
We may not see you again, this committee,
This mandate, yeah.
in this mandate, yeah.
Indeed for this committee.
And best of luck to
Thank
the
you
new
very much.
department.
Thank you.
You've always
Same
been
to
very
you.
helpful. Yeah, thank
I've
you.
always enjoyed it. Thank you,
Thank
Chair.
you. Yeah. Okay, members, then, are you content? Then, first of all, we are going to send the correspondence from Windwatch and I to the department, and we want to receive an update on CGN and the Rose Energy application. Okay, members, happy with that? Okay. We then moved on then back to the beginning, members, now that we have a quorum. And now we are then on to chairperson's business. Members, there's an email from, let's see, what is that one from? Just tabled.
Our
Email.
Sparrons, our future.
Our Sparrons, our future, requesting a meeting on a pending application, a planning application regarding a toxic processing plant in the Sparrons. The request is to meet with me and the deputy chair and other members if you maybe if you're free. So we'll arrange an informal meeting, maybe, and then let members know.
The request in a meeting, they're up at Stormont on Monday, so the request in the meeting.
Oh, this
For Monday,
coming Monday?
yes.
Okay. We'll look at the diary later on, is that okay? I need to check because I have 2 motions on Monday, I think. I need to. Yeah, what about you?
I'll need to check as well.
Yeah.
Okay,
We'll
agree
let you know.
subject to diary commitments?
Yeah, subject to diary. On Monday, I think I definitely have 2 motions, yeah. Okay. We'll try the best, we'll try the best to accommodate them. Okay, minutes, members, we have 2 sets of minutes. That's for the 2nd of February and the 4th of February on pages 6 and 8. Members, are you content to read the minutes? Content? Yes. Thank you. Then item 4, Metros Rising. Item 4.1 on page 14 is a departmental response to the PSNI issues on the waste management licensing amendment regulations. The committee has sought the views of the PSNI following comments they made during their evidence to the scrap metal dealers bill. The department has responded to the points raised by PSNI and has offered to meet the author of the PSNI email. Members, do you wish to get further information prior to us then looking at the SL1? This is in relation to the waste management licensing SL1 that we are going to have to consider and approve. Can someone bring you the coffee instead? We need you to stay here. Yeah. Paul.
It was a strategic move there. I can see that.
Yeah. I certainly think the department should meet with the PSNI members. You think they've offered to meet, and I think.
Well, I would, just on the basis of that, I think it's vitally important that we do.
Yeah.
Considering the evidence session last week, or maybe it was earlier this week, where we received evidence from those who are involved in the industry, where
Yeah.
they did make, where they had concerns over some aspects, the cashless aspect, and how they believed it left an opening for potential laundering if it were to be wanting to be engaged in by other groups. So I felt it might be interesting to find the PSNI's slant on that area to see if appreciate that some changes could be made, because that's really the only part of the bill that seems to be left. You know, everything else seems to have been either redlined or scrapped.
Yeah,
So-
this is on the SL1.
Yes.
That's coming from the Department about licensing.
Yes.
So
And
the police,
exemptions, this is the
exemption,
exemptions
yeah,
for
the
for
the
the waste
sector,
management licence, yeah.
Yes,
Reviewing the
appreciate that.
exemptions.
yes.
So, the suggestion would be, we had already previously written, the PSNI had already expressed concerns with the department proposal when they were given as evidence on the scrap metal dealers bill. So we sought their written comments just in relation to what the department is proposing in its SL1 on the waste management licensing regulations. And we sent that off to the department, so we've got their response in the pack today. They've offered to meet with the PSNI just to kind of chat through their concerns. So there might be a suggestion to get an update on any discussions.
Yeah,
and
we would encourage them to meet with the PSNI and then come back to us about the outcome of the meeting.
Yes.
The sector scrap dealers were concerned about the exceptions. That's very small scrap metal dealers may be able to buy exceptions or to have exceptions by paying a smaller sum.
Yes.
So,
Well,
and then,
I thought from what I picked up last week that that loophole in relation to those exemption licenses, if you want to put it that way, that loophole was going to be closed under
That's
what
the
they were
SL1 that
proposing,
we're looking at.
which is something
We're
which
going to
I,
look at,
I believe the industry will be thankful for, and I think it also maybe will take a few probably potentially operators who probably are not having to comply with all of the other things that the bigger dealers are having to do. So it'll take them out of the frame totally, and I mean, it'll should be more regulation to the whole industry and clean the act
they're
up.
saying really wanting a level playing field.
Yeah.
Everybody, obliged to observe the rules and to be regulated. Yeah. Okay, members content with that? Then we encourage the department to meet with PSNI to talk over the issues and let us know the outcome of the meeting.
Agreed, yeah.
And I think another thing is, as Paul said, the industry has expressed reservations. So we also maybe want to ask the sector, the consultative sector on that as well, on
Well,
the
the
SL1.
representatives who were here on Tuesday, because they also raised it,
Yeah.
so just to get their particular views on what the department are proposing.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's on the SL1, on exceptions. Yeah.
Fine, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Chair, just through you, Chair, I mean, just briefly talk us through where we're going here now, because I mean, there's we have a procedure to follow here.
This is an SL1. This is
Okay, sorry, I
this
missed,
is
obviously.
the
Yeah,
big.
yeah. See, the
It's-
SL1 is
I was in the
to
same line as
really
you.
widen,
was
the
gonna-
SL1 is to widen licensing, and that's to also then to capture scrap dealers as
Yeah,
well.
okay.
Scrap metal
Right,
dealers.
okay, right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we'll definitely
So,
go grab that
it's
side.
not the scrap metal bill. That will come in a minute.
Right, let's move on to the real issue.
I would all.
Yeah. So next one, this is matters arising, members. 4.2 is on page 16, is a response from the department to the committee's queries in relation to 4 proposals for an EU directives relating to waste. We had asked the department for its engagement with DAFRA and whether it had concerns regarding subsidiarity issues. The department advised that it had provided input on the policy implications section regarding food waste and advised that in relation to subsidiarity issues, it is content with the approach taken in the EM, that the Commission's proposal does not comply with the principle of subsidiarity. So members content to note?
Right.
Yeah. Well, members, if you're content to note in the meantime, and maybe we ask them then to keep the next committee informed of the progress. I'm sure they will. Yes. Okay.
No, that's fair enough, Chair. We've
Yeah,
really no
yeah,
control, but
yeah.
that's grand.
I know.
We'll agree with that.
Okay. Item 4.3 on page 18 is a copy of the department's taxi driver communication bulletin sent to all MOAs outlining forthcoming changes in the taxi industries. Member content to note?
Agreed.
Yeah. Next item, 4.4 on page 20 is a copy of the department's response to the DRD committee in relation to schemes to alleviate flooding and stormwater. The committee requested a copy of the response. Members, any views on this, or are you content to note? It's listing all the things they are doing, and there's the interdepartmental group working on it. So content in the meantime?
Chair, is there, sorry, I haven't actually read this, but is there any mention of built heritage and what they're doing with, I'm thinking in particular of some of the properties that have been seriously flooded and still have terrible problems now. For instance, thatched cottages. They're very old. Is there any mention of work with?
No, that I recall from memory. That is,
No, I don't
we can ask that. Yeah,
it's
we
just
can
to see
ask
what
that.
to find out what work they're going to do or what help they can
Yes.
give in order to protect some of
Okay.
these
Yeah.
incredibly old
Yeah. Okay.
historic buildings.
This is the department's response to DRD committee's
Right.
request. So we are just being copied in
Yes.
it. So yeah, we can ask that
That
question.
on the back of that.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah. Next item, 4.5 on page 23 is a response from Newry, Mourne and Down District Council responding to our request for statistics on Japanese knotweed. It has advised that knotweed is present on 7 council-owned sites there. So yeah, that sounds actually there. It is quite spread out. So members, as you know, the department is conducting its own analysis, still years, and officials are coming to brief us on the 23rd of February. So we should be hearing from them. So members, are you content to note in the meantime?
Yeah.
Okay. Then the next one, then we're going to skip then. Now we are into the scrap metal bill, formal clause by clause. Item 6, members. The papers relating to the scrap metal dealers bill. There are papers there from, let's see, we're page 14 of the tabled pack. It's a report. It's a draft report on stakeholder event list. Sorry, not draft report. It's a report on stakeholders event list to be included in the appendix. Sorry. This session is being recorded by Hansard, and thank you. And so, members, you will be aware that the committee stage concludes on the 19th of February. Okay, and at last Tuesday's meeting, members seem to have reached a consensus that the committee had run out of time to give proper consideration to all of the issues that had been raised on the bill, including the amendments proposed by the department, which impact on every clause other than clause 21. That's the short title. Members, can I just double check with you? Is this the agreement at last week's meeting? that we have run out of time.
Great.
We really haven't
Yeah.
enough time to scrutinise the amendments put forward by the department. Okay, and then, and the bill, yes, and the amendments and the bill. So, can I seek your agreement that the remaining time left in the committee stage would not be sufficient to resolve any outstanding issues?
Great.
Okay. Are members content to proceed with formal clause by clause of the bill today, which will allow the sponsor of the bill sufficient time to schedule his amending stages?
To the chair.
No, you're far away.
And,
No, you're all right.
okay, to the chair. I mean, Chair, yeah, I don't mind, but we have to follow the procedure. Okay, we have to do a report,
Yes.
but we need as a committee have some discussion on what way we'd like to go forward. Now, we've agreed initially, primarily what we're going to put in our report. Okay. The next phase for us now is going to be consideration stage on the floor of the House. Now, we don't know whether or not the department's going to move the amendments or proposals, whatever proposals. We actually won't know until the Thursday before the debate if what Mr Beggs is going to bring to the table.
He may or may not bring
And he
it to
may or may-
consideration stage.
Exactly, and but all I could suggest, and all we actually can do as a committee at this moment is try and agree a position on what way we'd like to deal with this. Besides, after a report, we've agreed a report, where do we go? Because, I mean, and so for discussion now, because, I mean, if Mr Beggs, for instance, brings something to the table, to the chamber, we're going to have to get up and debate it, or not. That's the way it goes. If the minister decides to take his amendments, we're in a position where we will be debating in the chamber, you know. So when as soon can we find out any of that? This committee as a, because I think uniformly we've agreed a position in terms of.
Well, the committee's position is that we don't have enough time to consider the bill or the amendments, and that's what we're going to say in our report. Then we're going to produce the report, but we must follow the procedure, and we must go through the informal and the formal clause by clause. And we've done the informal last week, on Tuesday, so we are now in the second stage, the final stage of our of the committee stage, which is looking at clause by clause. And I propose we're going to, like last week, group them together into two groups, you know, with your agreement. We can do it now, yes. And then Ciara's got tabled a draft report. If we have time, you know, it would be useful if we can agree the draft report, so that then we can submit that to the business office.
What if the bill were to be scheduled at consideration stage? Obviously, I mean, the committee has agreed that it doesn't have a view on the bill, or it's not content to take a view on the bill or the amendments because they've run out of time.
I might take a slightly different view to that, and it's only my personal opinion after listening to evidence over. And I unfortunately, I haven't been here from the start of this, and haven't been only involved in it in the latter part. The evidence that I've received would have made me come to a very quick conclusion that what we're dealing with is not necessary, and as a consequence, what we'll be doing in the chamber is really a window dressing exercise. And I really think we're wasting both assembly time and officials' time in going through the whole procedure. And I'm just want to put that on record, because I believe that's what we are doing after hearing the evidence. I understand we have to follow procedure, but I think we should have seen earlier on that there was definitely major flaws, and the department have already included that, because the redacted or the red-lined drafts that we seen last week, there's nothing in it, absolutely nothing in it. So what's the point in having a 4-hour debate or whatever? Because it could be a 4-hour debate, it could be as long as you want it to be, because it is legislation. It could be as long as you want on absolutely nothing which is going to have any material effect or
Well,
change.
the point is though, because at second stage, the House passed it, so the House supported the principle of the bill. So it's then passed on to onto us, the committee, to go through the scrutiny stage of the bill.
Through the chair, I mean, could I suggest, Chair, and we need a bit more creative than that. We understand the procedures, but I think this, in all my time in the committee, this is an unusual one. It's never raised its head before. In my time.
Not in this committee.
In this committee, we're saying now is we have to follow procedure, but we have to recognise also that there's no appetite now to go to consideration stage and for the consideration stage in terms of members, like most members of the committee. I'm not saying all. I can't speak for all, right? That's the point been raised. So what I could suggest, and the only thing we could do is try and get as soon as possible an answer from either the proposer of the bill or the department as to what they propose to take forward. That would be as soon as we, as practically possible, find out what they're going to do. Because you're right. We'll get up and say, we as a committee, have formulated a report. I hadn't the time to scrutinise the bill, but there's another point out there. There's actually no appetite for the piece of legislation through most of the committee. If you put it to a vote today,
Yeah.
That's an unusual part. It hasn't happened in this committee, But
What are the committees
That's the point.
saying? You're not in a position to consider formal clause by clause or the report today, or are you content that you have not had sufficient time to form a view and report in that way?
Or, I mean, your
we have to
proposed
do
point is
something to
that
form a view to report. Yeah.
You want to form a view of the report?
No, having the time to form a proper.
That,
review.
because that's
Yeah.
what this,
Yeah.
what this form, because that was my understanding
That's
on
it.
the committee's meeting on Tuesday,
That's gone.
that was the view of the committee, and that is what we're reflecting in the formal, or the committee will be considering now at the formal clause by clause. And there is a draft report for members to consider today to reflect the views. So if that remains the view of the committee, and if the committee are content to proceed today with the formal clause by clause and the
Yes.
draft report.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chair, that's
okay.
Yeah.
no.
So, I will then proceed, members, all right?
Yeah.
So just to remind you that the formal clause-by-clause consideration is the last opportunity to discuss the clauses of the bill, and any decisions will be final. Subject to your agreement, I propose to group clauses 1 to 20 in the Scrap Metal Dealers Bill for the formal question. So members, are you content with that?
That's grand, Chair.
That's grand,
Okay. Then, if members are content, then I will proceed as follows. I'll put the following question to you: that the committee is not content to form a view of clauses 1 to 20, as the committee is unable to give proper consideration and scrutiny of the complex issues raised at committee stage within the time remaining, including that it does not have a full understanding of the impact that the bill will have on the scrap metal industry.
Agreed.
Members agree with
Agreed,
that?
agreed.
Agreed. So, clause 21, short title. There are no proposed amendments to clause 21. Members, is the committee content with the clause as drafted?
Great.
Just a short title. Thank you. Schedules 1 and 2. Are members content that I group schedules 1 and 2 in a single question for the committee's consideration of the Scrap Metal Dealers Bill?
Great.
Agree? Then, members, members, that the committee is not content to form a view of schedules 1 and 2, as the committee is unable to give proper consideration and scrutiny of the complex issues raised at committee stage within the time remaining, including that it does not have a full understanding of the impact that the bill will have on the scrap metal industry.
Agreed.
Agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Long title, this is the end then, that this is the end of the clause-by-clause consideration of the bill. The committee must now consider the long title of the bill. No amendments have been proposed. Is the committee content with the long title of the bill?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. Then this then, members, concludes our formal clause-by-clause consideration of the scrap metal dealers bill. Okay, members, and are you content now to consider the draft report on the bill today? And it has only just been tabled, given the committee's consideration on Tuesday.
Content.
Are you content?
Right.
So, members, you have the report with you. Okay, members, that's that one. It's not very long, members, and I propose then, I think we just go through it bit by bit, and allowing you time to read through it. Okay, so I refer now to the draft report tabled. So I work through the report paragraph by paragraph in order to allow members to indicate agreement or to raise any suggestions for amendment. And members will be considering the entire report, including minutes of proceedings, minutes of evidence and written evidence. Okay. So maybe just, members, if I let you have a couple of minutes to first of all to look at the executive summary, starting at page 5 on to page 6. Okay, members?
Ground, Chair.
Okay. Members contend that the executive summary at paragraphs 1 to 8 stands part of the report.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. Then the next part is the introduction of the draft bill, and that's paragraphs 9 to 12. So, members, a couple of minutes for you to read through.
That's Chair.
Content?
Content.
Okay. Our members contend that the introduction of the draft bill at paragraph 9 to 12 stands part of the report.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. Next, as the committee approach to the draft bill at paragraph 13 to 21.
Ground, Chair.
Agreed, Chair.
Okay, and members contend that the committee approach to the draft bill at paragraphs 13 to 21 stands part of the report.
Agreed.
Agreed. So, members, the next part is on key issues of the bill at paragraph 22 to 25. So, if you please have a look at that. Okay, are members content? Key issues of the bill at paragraph 22 to 25 stands part of the report.
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you. Then the next part is on issues raised by Department of the Environment sections of the bill at paragraphs 26 to 31.
Madam Chair.
So, members contend that the issues raised by Department of the Environment section of the bill at paragraphs 26 to 31 stands part of the report.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. Then the next section is sponsor of the bill's evidence, members, and that's at paragraphs 32 to 36. Our members contend that the issues addressed by the sponsor of the bill section of the bill at paragraphs 32 to 36 stands part of the report.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. Next one is paragraphs 37 to 41, and that's proposed department amendments.
69 amendment. Agreed. It's crazy, isn't it?
Fine, Chair.
Okay, our members contend that the proposed departmental amendment section of the bill at paragraphs 37 to 41 stands part of the report.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. Next one is summary of evidence, and at paragraphs 42 to 101. You mentioned it. Yep. Okay, just Kira want to just add a sentence.
Yeah, I
to-
just
for your
add a
attention.
sentence to paragraph 42, members. This section is the other evidence that we've heard outside of DOE and the sponsor. Obviously, previous paragraphs had already reflected on that evidence, so I just want to make that clear. So if you're content with that paragraph subject to that amendment, just to make
Yeah.
it clear.
Okay.
Yeah, we'd caught that on, Ciara.
Okay, members, you finished that part? We've seen them all or before. Yeah, yeah. Okay, members, Are you content that the summary of evidence from our stakeholders taken on the bill at paragraphs 42 to 101 stands part of the report?
Great.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. Next section is the clause-by-clause consideration of the bill at paragraphs 102 to 106.
Great, Chair. I mean, it's just a list.
Yeah,
Yeah.
agree with that. Thank you. So are members content that the clause-by-clause consideration of the bill at paragraphs 102 to 106 stands part of the report? Agreed. Thank you. Then that concludes consideration of the main body of the report. Members, are you content to move to formal consideration of each appendix of the final bill report?
Great.
Okay. Are members content that the extracts of the minutes of proceedings at Appendix 1 stands part of the report?
Great.
Are members content that the minutes of evidence at Appendix 2 stands as part of the report?
Great.
Are members content that the written submissions at Appendix 3 stands as part of the report?
Great.
Are members content that the papers from sponsor of the bill and departmental responses at Appendix 4 stands part of the bill, part of the report? Are members content that the other papers are at Appendix 5 stands part of the report?
Great.
Are members content that the research papers at Appendix 6 stands part of the report?
Great.
Are members content for the chairperson to approve an extract from today's minutes and minutes from the 9th of February 2016, which reflect the read-through of the report? These are needed for inclusion in Appendix 1 minutes of proceedings. Okay, thank you. Members, you're content then with the appendices. Then the report in its entirety will be laid in the Assembly Business Office tomorrow. Members content with that? Thank you. Right. Then where are we now?
On to the next item
Then we go on then.
So,
We have, yep, I'm going to take away that. Then members, time's moving on. Members, then we are on to then item 7, consultations. The next item on the agenda
I just
is...
could, before we move
Yeah.
off, could I make a point? I think it's an important point, because it seems we've done an injustice to the member on the piece of legislation brought forward. I think we have to learn, or committees in the future have to learn, about trying to rush through legislation at the end of a mandate. And it would sort of be remiss of us maybe not to reflect as a committee, because Mr. Beggs, to be fair to him, put a lot of work into it. We as a committee just did not have the time to scrutinise it properly.
Yeah.
I think it's a lesson for all of the committees, not just this one.
Although, to be fair, lots of committees are rushing
no,
through
no, 100%.
legislations too.
But it's a slightly different matter when you have the support of a department. We have an individual member here with a smaller team, and all I'm saying to you is that we as an assembly then have to look at a possible deadline, maybe earlier, closer to the end, or say if we had
Further
looked at this last September, it would have given us time.
Yeah.
There has to be something put in writing to do that. There's no way that we should be rushing this forward. We're sitting in February, or 4 weeks to the end of a mandate, trying to scrutinise the private members' bill. So we have to learn from it, irrelevant of the department stuff, because I mean they have a different body or a different team. We have to reflect it as a committee. So I don't know where we need to put that in the report or not, but to reflect it outside of it, it's grand. I mean, yeah.
Would members want the comments to be included in the report?
or reflected outside to the appropriate.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's quite a
Reflected to the business office,
Russian something
I
to
think.
the end, it's not.
maybe to the...
Chair, I think it is a very valid point, and I know Certainly, I've experienced this in other committees as well. But I think there are other factors involved there as well. I don't think anybody wanted to, simply turn down another member's, work when they've been working on it for some considerable period of time without actually giving it an airing. So it's, I think there are other factors taken into consideration. I think it's probably unhelpful that there were two departments, Justice and Environment, who didn't actually, neither of them, quite frankly, wanted to look at the bill. So I think that was probably a delay as well, which would have been beyond Mr. Begg's control. So I think there are other factors, but I think it's a valid point. It should be pointed out.
Yeah. But then one of the, issues for each department is not wanting it. Yes, for the environment, they argue is not, an environmental issue. But I think for justice, they have so many different bills going through. They just don't have the time as well. So
but Chair, then just
so it is really everything is.
But the Assembly in the whole then on Boris emergency legislation needs to say September before the end of the mandate.
Need to schedule it better.
In terms of if it's private or whatever, but that should be an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
If there's a piece of emergency legislation, that's slightly different. But there should be a way of dealing with this here. There definitely should be a better way of dealing with it. I think
lessons
put it forward in September. Whoever come up with. But I mean, we're sitting here with a private member's bill, can't scrutinise with 4 weeks left. We don't even want to, unfortunately, don't want to debate the consideration for the consideration. And it's an injustice, really. So, we have an opportunity here to register it first, and then let's say good luck to whoever comes back in the new mandate. Let's see, can they come up with something else, to deal with or address it. That's all I'm saying.
Chair, if I just could come in, I can concur with the comments that have been made by the other members. I am new to this committee, as you know. I know my colleague has put in a lot of work to this bill, and it has to be disappointing for him to come to this stage that it is going to be, not go anywhere. But I do agree with what you say in respect that there does have to be time limits. There has to be something brought in, because what I'm witnessing at this minute in time, is this crazy situation of everything going through last minute and not having the time to properly deal with items that people have put a lot of time and effort into. So there does need to be something done going into the future.
Yeah, it is unfair to him, spending so much time. And he started the process very early on, 2012, I think he started the consultation. So it's taken a long time.
A long time.
For it to come through. So we will reflect that to the business committee, and maybe in future the scheduling need to be more realistic. Particularly for a private member's bill. Okay. Yep. Okay, members, then the next item is consultation, and on page 108 you can see then it's a synopsis of responses to the consultation on the draft policy guidance on the identification and designation of quiet areas. I think we had certainly also a notification about it from an organisation previously. The consultation closed on the 16th of November 2015. The Belfast City Council was granted an extension to respond until the 15th of January. 42 consultation responses were received. Of these, 36 were from members of the public or community groups suggesting that additional or other areas to be designated. Of the 4 district councils within the agglomeration, 2 are content with the policy and happy for the candidate quiet areas to be designated. The department proposes to engage in further discussions with all 4 affected councils to discuss these issues raised before making a final decision on designations. A copy of correspondence from Belfast City Airport Watch, previously considered by the committee expressing their concerns with the policy, is also included for members at page 126 Members, any views on this? And maybe we should ask the department, the time scale for the further consultation with the 4 councils. Whether the arising policy from this consultation will need new legislation, or can it be done through regulation?
Okay.
And if so, maybe just see some clarification of what criteria they're going to use to designate and those areas, and whether there is any scope to add additional areas, given the views expressed by some people.
Yeah, Chair, agree with those actions.
Yeah. Happy with those? Yep, with the views, yep. So next item 8, is an SL1, and that's the Driver and Vehicle Agency Trading Fund order on page 162. The statutory renames the DVTA Trading Fund as the Driver and Vehicle Agency Funding Fund, and includes the whole of DVA within the scope, bringing in driver licensing, taxi and bus licensing, and regulation and compliance and enforcement of the transport industry. The department has advised that this will simplify accounting and operational procedures and will bring the business focus that a trading fund is designated to engender to all DVA activities. Extension of the fund would allow all DVA operations to have financial arrangements which support multi-year financial decisions. The committee considered the synopsis of responses to the consultation on the 5th of November and were content for the committee to prepare the SL1. The Department of Finance Personnel is required to concur and sign the proposed order, and is subject to draft affirmative resolution procedure in the Assembly. It is proposed that the order will come into operation on 1st April 2016. Members, would you need an oral briefing, or are you content for the department to proceed with making the rule? This is an SL1. Do you feel that you have enough information on this?
Yes, Chair. Yeah.
Given the time we have?
Yeah.
Really, I think. Are we content then, members, for the department to proceed?
Yeah.
It's going to have affirmative resolution anyway. It will come before us again. So, happy with that?
Right.
Okay.
Agreed.
Number 9, then item number 9 is an SR. That's the Planning Local Development Plan Amendment. Fairly straightforward, members. At page 167, we considered the SL1 on the 28th of January. At that time, we were content for the department to proceed in making the rule. The department is clarifying really through this amendment that older departmental development plans prepared and adopted under the Planning NI Order 1972, of which there are 4, are taken to be the Council's local development plans for the area during the transitional period. And this is a minor technical amendment. Consultation was considered unnecessary. The statutory is subject to negative resolution procedure before the Assembly and will come into operation on 29th February 2016. Members, are you content with that?
Great, Chair.
Okay, then I'll put the following question then to you. The Committee for the Environment has considered SR 2016/27, the Planning Local Development Plan Amendment Regulations NI 2016, and subject to the report of the Examiner of Statutory Rules, has no objection to the rule. Are members agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Next item, item 10, another SR, that's the Emissions Performance Standards Monitoring and Enforcement Regulations. At page 174, the SR was submitted to us on the 3rd of September 2015 to advise of the policy position and the Northern Ireland consultation on draft Emissions Performance Standards Monitoring and Enforcement Regulations NI 2016. The consultation finished and the SL1 was revised to update the committee on its outcome and the final proposed regulations. We considered the SL1 on the 28th January, and at that time we were content for the department to proceed in making the rule. The rule sets out the approach and requirements placed on operators and the Chief Inspector for monitoring compliance with the emissions performance standard by operators of fossil fuel plants. These arrangements follow closely and use the same information as those that are in place under the EU emissions trading scheme. Provision is made for the principles that will apply and the mechanisms that will be available to the Chief Inspector in respect of sanctions in the event of a breach. It also makes provision for an abuse mechanism, the publication of information, and provides the department to make a charging scheme. Only one response was received to the consultation and was broadly supportive of the proposals. The financial impact assessment identified one-off costs comprising of the administrative expenses incurred during the initial information exchange between the regulator and each eligible operator to establish the EPS value of the new plant. That's 7,500 per plant. A cost on the regulator to make a central IT system fit for purpose is £45,000. Ongoing costs taking into consideration the annual costs associated with monitoring the EPS for eligible plants, estimated at £3,500 per plant per annum. There is also an expected annual cost of £500 for the regulator to update their website. In Northern Ireland, the regulator is NIEA. The statutory rule is subject to negative resolution procedure before the Assembly. The rule will come into operation on the 15th of March 2016. If members are content, I will ask the following question. The Committee for the Environment has considered SR 2016/28, the Emissions Performance Standard Monitoring and Enforcement Regulations NI 2016, and subject to the report of the Examiner of Statutory Rules, has no objection to the rule. Are members agreed?
Great.
Okay, thank you. Item 11, correspondence. Item 11.1 at page 191 is a letter from the Minister regarding a planning decision on the construction and operation of combined heat and power generating station. That's the Bombardier one. So members content to note?
Great.
Okay. Then item 11.2 at page 192 is an email from Nixie, is that what we call? Nikki? Yes, sorry, Nikki, for the Children's Commissioner, regarding their recent fund mapping report. A copy of the report's executive summary is included in members' pack. A copy of the full report was emailed to members for information earlier this week. Members, are you content to note?
Great.
Okay, thank you. Item 11.3 at page 202 are copies of explanatory memorandums on the report on the shipment of waste and report on commitments to Kyoto Protocol. Are members content to note?
Great.
Okay. Item 11.4 at page 211 is a copy of the current Irish Environment newsletter. Members content to note?
Great.
I'm sure you've read it from cover to cover.
Oh, right. 1 page, 10 paragraphs.
Okay, members, forward work programme is at page 213. Members content to note?
Yes.
Yeah, just to really remind members, next week is our stakeholder event.
That's right.
And that's at Oxford Island, Craigavon, starting at
Starting at 10, and I will be seeking volunteers from members to participate and to facilitate discussion tables. So once I have an idea of how many tables we need, I'll be in contact to seek volunteers from them.
So want to obviously spread out the members to be sitting at different tables.
Good
And,
luck with
the
everybody.
best way.
yeah,
All the
yeah.
best. Enjoy.
And members are going to chair though.
That's what I'm looking for, volunteers,
Yeah,
someone
member will
to
be
chair
chairing
and
each
facilitate
table.
discussion.
Yeah, yeah. and then there will be a rapporteur to report back.
Coming in from Europe.
Will not be members. Members just really
Yes,
listen and facilitate the discussion. Really, yeah. Just make sure people get a chance to speak rather to be maybe dominated by one or two people. Yeah. Okay with that,
Happy enough.
members? Yep. So then AOB. Any AOB members? I don't have any.
Yeah, just one point. This issue, is there something consultation of bonfires out at the minute, or issue about bonfires that the through DOE or something? No, did the minister notify us of it?
We are going to get a
on it.
briefing.
Yeah.
Yes.
The
Soon.
Department issued a discussion paper, so the
Yes.
committee had requested the outcome of
You be
that
stirring
discussion paper. So
No,
it
I
will be
won't,
coming on the 23rd.
It's a burning issue, obviously, so we'll discuss it. When is that?
I think it's the 23rd.
Okay,
of
thank you.
February,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
a Tuesday.
Okay. So members,
11th
date,
of July
time,
we're doing it.
and place of next meeting is Thursday, 18th of February, 10 a.m. at the Lough Neagh Discovery Centre, Oxford Island, to hold our river pollution stakeholder event.
August.
Okay, members? We'll finish about 1 o'clock and have lunch. Then we can finish by about 1:30. Members can be back by 2 for your meeting in the afternoon. So adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
Assembly Senate, Programme Sound. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Senate, Programme Sound.